Silver went from $120 to nearly $67 within a matter of a couple of days. So that does a lot to shake out the weak hands. But if you look back, that's when silver bottomed and essentially did not look back after that. Very, very steadily rising. Didn't give you the kinds of returns that you got in gold. Next couple of months, I think we could see more consolidation. I think after that, in the second half of the year, I think we're going to start to see both metals regain bull market status and start rising once again. Not sure that we're going to see the highs that we saw earlier this year, but I do think we're going to see significantly higher prices before the year is out.
Silver's dramatic drop from $120 to $67 in just days shook out weak hands, creating a classic reset in the market. According to Peter Krauth, such volatility often marks strong bottoms rather than long-term weakness. Since then, silver has stabilized and begun a steady upward trend, even if it hasn't matched gold's explosive gains. Short-term consolidation is likely over the next few months, allowing the market to rebuild strength. However, in the second half of the year, both gold and silver are expected to re-enter a bullish phase, with significantly higher prices ahead as demand and macroeconomic pressures intensify. Now, we present the clips from Peter Krauth's interview. Before we continue to discuss this, please subscribe to our channel and activate the bell icon for timely updates. Thank you, and enjoy the video.
Silver went from $120 to nearly $67 within a matter of a couple of days. So that does a lot to shake out the weak hands. But corrections have to typically correct to a matter of degree on price and over a certain amount of time, so that you get the full sort of sustainable correction, and then you form a proper bottom so that the weak hands basically get shaken out and the strong hands keep holding, and those that feel they may have missed but really understand the true fundamentals of the market will start participating, start buying, and then build that base for a new rise in the market. So next couple of months, I think we could see more consolidation. I think after that, in the second half of the year, I think we're going to start to see both metals regain bull market status and start rising once again. Not sure that we're going to see the highs that we saw earlier this year, but I do think we're going to see significantly higher prices before the year is out. Now we're averaging $70. I think that many of these silver producers and explorers are more than happy at this level. I can't speak for investors, and maybe they're just too greedy, but frankly, these are fantastic prices, and it's tremendous for the market. It has it always has other issues, that's for sure. We talked about the challenges for the solar industry, for example, but as I say, the silver producers, the silver developers, the silver explorers, they're all really happy with these much, much higher silver prices. And the market is very tight. There have been no meaningful discoveries of silver in the last several years. It's been the same for gold. And silver is different from gold in the sense that about 75% of silver comes as a byproduct. Of mined silver comes as a byproduct. Only 25% of mined silver is from what we call primary silver mines. So you depend a lot for the silver that comes to market from mining. You depend a lot on mining other metals. So gold, copper, lead, and zinc. Those are the four most common metals that have silver as a byproduct. So, the producers of these metals are not motivated to produce more silver just because the silver price went up. It's a small portion of their revenues. So they're happy to see silver at whatever price, especially if it's climbing and climbing and climbing. They're not going to go out of their way to try and produce more silver. So you can actually get to a point where, we call it the inelasticity of silver supply. So higher silver prices do not mean bringing more silver to market. So I think what we're going to see is, now we've had this parabolic rise. We've had silver pull back. We're at a point where silver is now very likely, and at least for the last couple of months, has averaged somewhere around the $70, $75 range. That, as I say, is more than double where it was a year ago. That is way higher than we've had it. I mean, look, Michelle, it took 45 years for silver to go from $50 in 1980 back to back to $50 last October, and then finally break above it and stay above it. It took 45 years for that, and then it took 3 months to double to 100. That was way too much, too fast. But I think that when we can digest these gains and we can have a healthier, more gradual climb in the silver price as the market comes to terms with the fact that this is a metal that in nearly all of its applications is not easily substitutable, and in many of them it is absolutely not substitutable. That's when, with these tight silver markets, and as I say, few discoveries, next to no, I mean, you look at numbers from the Silver Institute, they're forecasting perhaps 1 to 2% mine supply growth. That is a drop in the bucket when you have a structural deficit of 10 to 15% every year. If you add up the deficits of the last 4 years, you have an entire year's mine supply of deficit. The only reason that silver prices have been, I'm going to say, capped, so to speak, around that $30 level up until the early part of last year was because the 5 to 10 years prior to 2020, you had excess silver. So you had silver surpluses, not huge amounts, but you did have surpluses.
Silver sharp from $120 to $67 triggered a classic market shakeout, eliminating weak hands and resetting momentum for a stronger foundation. As analysts note, healthy corrections require both price and time to form sustainable bottoms. With supply remaining tight and limited new discoveries, silver's fundamentals remain strong. The market is now entering a consolidation phase, likely stabilizing around $70 to $75 before the next move. Crucially, silver's inelastic supply, where higher prices don't rapidly increase production, supports long-term upside. As structural deficits persist and industrial demand grows, silver is expected to gradually rebuild momentum and re-enter a bullish trend in the second half of the year. Let's get back to the interview.
When I put that chart together, we are here was early February. We had that correction, and so that area was essentially the bear trap. So you had that correction. You had people sell out, lost on their sales because they bought higher. They saw it tank, and then they said, "Okay, I'm out." And then so you had that selling by the weak hands essentially. So the strong hands either didn't sell or sold a bit, perhaps took profits close to the top. And then you've had the others who've been watching this all unfold and said, I get it. I see where we are. They have probably done some research. They realize that this is a significantly strong market that has much higher to go. And now that we've had the correction, they're going to start buying. They're going to start buying at the levels where we are now, that bottom, and they're going to set the stage for that new rise. And that new rise takes us eventually out of above the previous top. And as I say, in silver, it's been much higher. But even if the chart looks somewhat different, we're going to eventually take out the previous highs. It could take a year, could take maybe a couple of years, hard to say. I don't think it'll be that long, but yes, I do think we could see triple digits by the end of this year. But I do think that in that chart where we saw the awareness phase that we're in now, and eventually the mania phase, I think the difference is that it's going to be drawn out much longer than we saw. That chart looks compressed to me for when you apply it to silver. The US, as you said, just last year in the fall, added silver to its critical minerals list. That's the first time that's ever happened. If you look at the import numbers, which I have, and the numbers vary depending who does the research and so on, but we're looking at least 40% of the silver that the US consumes being imported. That's a pretty significant number for the world's largest economy, and silver becoming more important. So why would it add it to its critical minerals list. Look, you've had Trump, for example, saying that they want to build stockpiles of critical minerals. They have all sorts of programs that are government and privately joint funded that will help build these critical mineral stockpiles. They want to be more self-reliant. China actually controls 60 to 70% of the world's silver refining. So even if you may have produced silver in one place, there's a decent chance that it's gone through China to be refined before it gets exported back out. And now they're talking about restricting those exports. It's a licensing thing where they're saying that companies have to have exported a certain amount in the past. The companies have to be a certain size. They're just basically, setting the stage so that they can call the shots more easily and keep the silver at home. Remember, they control about 80 or 85% of solar panel manufacturing globally, and that's the single biggest industrial consumption application for silver. So I don't think it's going to take that long. When you start to get a rebuild and a restocking of arms after using up significant amounts here in Ukraine. When I say here, I meant during this war now here in Iran, and that's not over. So let's see how that goes. But that's a lot of arms to replace, and China's talking about limiting their exports. So it's not surprising that. We've even seen, for example, we had seen this decades ago, but it started to happen again in a couple of cases. The U.S. administration has now started to go out and outright buy stock in public companies because they believe in the long-term potential of their projects that are at home. So within their own borders, and not only necessarily within their own borders. There's an interesting project down in Peru. A company called Cerro de Pasco has one of the world's largest above ground mineral stockpiles anywhere. And so we're talking about an equivalent of about 400 million ounces of silver. Now, this was mined starting back about 100 years. And they had different mining methods. They weren't as efficient as they were today. And a lot of the tailings, or what we call tailings today, still has very high grade, by today's standards, high grade silver, copper, gold, zinc, things like gallium, in fact, which is a rare metal that is, I think, something like 95% controlled by China. So now this company has backing by the Defense Department in the US because they have a critical mineral. So they're providing funds to them to do research to advance the project, and could potentially advance hundreds of millions of dollars of loans to be able to fund and build the project to actually mine this stuff eventually. So, U.S. administration is going beyond its own borders to help finance projects in places that they feel comfortable.
Silver's recent correction formed a classic bear trap, shaking out weak hands while strong investors position for the next rally. As the market stabilizes, smart money is re-entering, building a base for a powerful breakout above previous highs. With silver now classified as a critical mineral in the United States, demand is accelerating amid supply constraints and geopolitical shifts. Heavy reliance on imports and refining dominance by China further tighten the market. As industrial demand, especially solar, surges and global tensions rise, silver's long-term outlook remains highly bullish, with potential triple-digit prices driven by structural deficits and strategic accumulation. Share your thoughts on his analysis in the comment section below. If you find this video informative, please support us by turning on notifications to stay informed about our latest videos. See you in the following video. Thanks for watching.